This is a before and after video. This is the before, or almost before. I've cleaned it up a little bit. Just I had some rags I wanted to get rid of, so I used them to wipe off all the junk that was on the bottom here, all the dust. Well, as much as I could get off with the rag anyways. This is what it came with. It has some things that need fixing up on it. The chip tray, at some point they had cut the lip on it and bent it back so they could just shove the swarf off the back, I suppose. Anyways, that needs to be addressed. Bed's in good shape, really good shape actually for a student lathe. This came out of a high school, it's my understanding. It only has the one little bit of damage here. It's on the inner V, the one for the tailstock. It's got a chunk taken out of it, and I guess there's some minor damage on the compound, but really it's not in bad shape. It's actually in better shape than my other lathes that also came from high schools. Originally this would have been gray, pretty much that color right there. It's been repainted a couple of times. Probably originally it was painted a green for the school it came out of. Here's plate on the back. You can just make it a 5 right here. So this probably was one of a battery of lathes in a high school. Been fiddled with. It originally came with a 3-phase 3/4 horsepower motor. The last owner of the lathe replaced it with a 1.5 horsepower single phase, which I intend to keep. The 12-inch faceplate actually I got with this lathe originally. It came with it. I don't know, I think they mixed the parts together because it also came with that 8-inch 4-jaw chuck, which fits, but I think it's more in keeping with a 12-inch lathe. My plan is to restore this one, clean it up, and fix every little bit that needs addressing. It's got some oil caps that need replacing. In fact, what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to replace them with Zerks. I'm going to pop those out and thread it with the next sized oil Zerk that'll fit, and I'll oil it in the future using the Zerk as opposed to using, you know, the oilers. I have a hard time finding them, in fact, which is why I'm going to replace them with the Zerks. The added advantage of the Zerk is that you can't hook the caps with swarf or anything like that. So that's what I'm going to do there. Not much else to say. It's got a crappy paint job on it that has to be sanded down and painted over. And this needs to be repaired. It was broken off as well, and they machined a little plastic to go in, but I don't like it, so I'm probably going to thread that out and put a brass plug in similar to this one over here, which I really like actually, because it lowers the clearance. And this incidentally will be replaced by this one here, so this has to fit under there. I'm going to make a mobile stand similar to that one for this one as well. So I'm going to begin by removing the motor, removing all the parts that'll come off easily, and then I have to figure out some way of lifting the lathe off of the cabinet so that I can take the chip pan out, bash it back into shape, and weld it together. It's a nice size. These 10-inch lathes are actually really 11-inch lathes. They have something like an 11.5-inch swing. So really the radius wasn't the issue, but the length, I wanted something that was longer. These are only 20 inches between centers, and there's been a few times where I've had to turn something that was just a little bit longer. Now I did come up with ways of getting around that. What I did is I brought this out to here, which is, you know, not the greatest, but it actually worked in a pinch. But I'd like to get away from doing that sort of thing in the future. I'm quite excited. This is the one I always kind of wanted. I just haven't been able to find one until now. So it'll be my new prized possession. Currently this one is the one that, you know, it's my baby. It's got an inverter on it, so I have a variable speed. Everything's done, you know, pretty much the way I want on it. And it's a nice tight lathe. So I'll probably keep it, and I'll keep this one, and I'll have to get rid of that one to make room for this one, because everything here is just shoehorned into a one-car garage, and believe it or not, I actually like to use it as a garage once in a while. I've taken the electrics off of it, as well as the compound rest. It just comes off with two 11/16 nuts. Taking the motor off, and scraped away a little paint. The blue paint wasn't put on very well, so it scrapes off pretty easy, which is good news. The bad news is the green that's underneath is on there pretty good, and it is hideous. So I'll have to find some way of taking it down. I may not strip it because there is some filler in the casting to smooth it out, and I don't want to remove that, so I may sand it down so that it has some teeth, and then I'll just paint over top of it. We will see. Anyways, this is just a step-by-step. The first steps were take the motor off and take as much off as I can. I also took the shelves out. Here they are right here. They're pretty ugly. That is representative of the way the lathe was when I first got it. It's just a layer of dust impregnated with oil, I suppose. Lord knows how old it is. Well, there it is. I've taken it down. Everything's stripped off. I guess my next step will be to disconnect it from the cabinet base. Take the tray out. Fix the tray. Put the tray back in so that I can scrape down the bed, wash it down for painting. Now, I'm a little unsure as to the sequence for that. Maybe I'll just do it the other way around. I don't know. No surprises except for one. As you can see, bed's in good shape, just a little dirty, and it's not the worst I've seen. The only surprise I had was there's supposed to be a shear pin in here made out of brass, and they had replaced it with a steel one. Probably a nail or something like that. But the good news is, after replacing it, they didn't hit anything, so it wasn't twisted or anything like that, and I was able to get it out without too much difficulty. This is pretty heavy, but it is liftable. I figure it's probably 140, 150 pounds. So we'll see how much that weighs. It's probably going to be too much for me to lift by myself. Unless I come up with something and just lift one end at a time. We'll see. This is still bugging me. So I'm going to devise a way of straightening that back up. Probably I'll pinch 2 pieces of bar steel in between some vice grips or something, maybe with longer handles. Bend it back up into shape. Pound out that little crease there. Weld it. It's lots of fun. This is going to be a good lathe when it's done. I'm pretty happy with everything I see so far. No bad surprises, except for that shear pin, and that wasn't so bad. All remains now is to clean it and paint it and put it back together. And of course, you know, the odd grease oil cap needs to be replaced, and the knobs need to be replaced on it. Just little cosmetic things, really. I welded the, I bent the flap back. I used a torch on it, soften it up because it's quite thick. So I bent it back as best I could, and I pounded it with body hammers, and then I welded the cuts back together, and it's relatively straight. Next I'll grind it down and get it ready for painting, I guess. I've also taken the lathe bed off of the, off the cabinet, and scraped some of the paint off. So anyways, that's all coming together pretty good. Get the headstock off here. I'm going to try to pull this off. I'm going to see if I can't get those out, and I'll flatten that out as best I can, clean it up, and put it back on after I paint it. I think what I'll do is, instead of having these, I don't know what they're called exactly, they're kind of a spiral screw, they sort of tap in, I'll tap them with probably a 440 if I have a tap. So that's small anyways. I'll use some sort of screw, I think, to fasten the plate back down on it with. Quite happy so far. The chip pan's not going to be perfect, but it's not going to be too bad. And what I'll do is, I think I'll put a hole, probably I'm going to house the flood coolant pump and tank inside the cabinet somewhere, so it'll come up through there.